What do you call two fat people that live next door to each other? Chunky neighbors.
Home turf of the rolling 60s, part of the largest street gang in all of Los Angeles, a gang called the Crips.
So, on March 31st, 2019, the streets of Los Angeles were shaken by the news that Nipsey Hussle, a beloved figure and local hero, had been gunned down outside his Marathon clothing store. The tragedy was captured in real time as videos quickly spread across social media showing Nipsey being rushed to the hospital where he was later pronounced dead.
It's the dramatic last video of rapper Nipsey Hussle, gunned down in Los Angeles. Oh my goodness! Paramedics worked frantically to keep him alive.
Fast forward to the same date in 2021, another violent incident unfolded under eerily similar circumstances. This time, the scene was set at a mobile gas station located on the 100 block of East Palmdale Boulevard in Los Angeles County. It was early in the afternoon around 1:24 p.m. when deputies were called to the location following reports of a shooting. When they arrived, they discovered a crowd of onlookers gathered around a white vehicle. Instead, a man was found in the driver's seat, appearing to be unconscious with at least one gunshot wound.
Yeah, he's still alive.
Y'all get a paramedic here. He looked like he's still moving, dude. Get a paramedic. He's still moving.
Despite the quick arrival of paramedics, the young man, just 24 years old, was pronounced dead at the scene. The victim wasn't officially identified by the police right away, but word on the street and across various social media platforms was quick to name him as Dennis Nichols, better known by his street moniker Shady Blue. Shady was reputed to be a respected member of the Rolling 60s, a gang that Nipsey Hussle was also a part of. In fact, he and Nipsey were pretty tight, and Nipsey even shouted him out in his tracks.
Listen, look, pull up in that old school, me and Lil Shady Blue.
The coincidence of his death on the anniversary of Nipsey's passing underscored the relentless and often tragic cycle of street life. Same date, same method, same gang affiliation. Shady Blue wasn't just any gang member, he was known as a formidable figure within his gang, and there were rumors that he might have been involved in multiple violent incidents against rival gang members. His reputation made his a significant event in the gang community, sparking a flurry of claims and counterclaims on social media. It's a common occurrence in the world of gang culture. When a prominent figure falls, everyone wants to claim responsibility, seeking to bolster their reputation or settle old scores. Social media platforms lit up with boasts and threats, as various individuals vied for recognition in the aftermath of Shady Blue's demise. However, the case took a significant turn on November 16, 2021. One rapper known as JAP5, allegedly affiliated with the 107 Hoover Criminals, a rival gang, was charged with Shady Blue's Shady Blue's life story starts in the vibrant Crenshaw district of Los Angeles, California, where his family, hailing from Belize, had chosen to settle. The neighborhood of Bryanhurst Avenue, lined with its distinct culture and challenges, was where Shady's tale unfolded. He quickly became a beloved figure locally, known for his infectious humor and his knack for bringing people together.
What do you call two fat people that live next door to each other? Chunky neighbors.
Shady was the kind of guy who always had your back. Whether you were family or just felt like family, he looked out for his brothers, his grandmothers, and virtually anyone he considered kin. His presence was a staple in the community. People not only depended on him, they admired him, especially the younger kids who saw him as a big brother figure. In 2015, at the young age of 19, Shady Blue's life took a tough turn as he entered the California prison system. It did not take long for him to adapt to the harsh realities inside, and soon he was able to get a hold of a phone. Using it, he kept his social media updated, posting pictures and videos on Instagram, keeping his presence felt even behind bars.
Oh, that's up. Oh, let her up, let her get up, let her get up.
Life in a California prison can be an intense continuation of street life, with gang affiliations often dictating one's survival. Shady fully embraced this, displaying his loyalty with a bold 60 tattooed across his stomach, a 6 on his throat, and neighborhood 60s sprawled across his back, signaling his deep ties to the rolling 60s. However, not everything about his time in prison was negative. The structured environment provided him an opportunity to focus on education, and he managed to graduate in 2017. Later that year, he was released back into the world.
And the time and ability to graduate in 2017.
However, freedom was fleeting. By 2019, Shady found himself entangled with the law once again, leading to another stint in prison. He was released in August 2020, a significant month for him as it also marked his birthday. Tragically, just 8 days before his untimely death, Shady made a post on Instagram that seemed to subtly call someone out.
He'd post to Instagram saying, "I heard it's in a cell sending idle threats. Come home first, then get at me. I ain't hard to find on gang. We can boogie with the devil."
His life was cut short in a shooting that occurred far from the familiar streets of the 60s near Lancaster, California. Ironically, the same place where he had faced legal troubles the previous year. As of now, his daylight remains unsolved, leaving a cloud of sorrow and unanswered questions hanging over the community. Now, let's circle back to JAP5. He was making a name for himself on the LA rap scene and was really starting to get some traction. He was looking to step away from the street drama that had surrounded his earlier life. However, just as his music career was picking up steam, he found himself entangled in a case of Shady Blue. It was a major setback, dragging him from the cusp of breakout success back to a cell. His journey had been a wild one, moving from the tough streets where he'd been known to wield a screwdriver in fights, to lighting up stages as a rapper, and then allegedly to being involved in a fatal shooting that landed him back behind bars. JAP5 grew up in South Central LA, representing the 107 Hoover Criminals, a gang entrenched in the complex web of LA gang politics. Let's break down some of that complexity. The gang scene in LA is not just about territorial disputes. It's a deeply historical and intricate social structure. The Hoovers, for instance, predate the Crips. Originating in the 1960s, locals from Hoover Street banded together, forming the Hoover Groovers. By 1969, when Stanley Tookie Williams and Raymond Lee Washington founded the Crips, the landscape of gang alliances in LA began to shift dramatically. As the Crips expanded, internal conflicts led to the formation of various factions. By the late 70s, there were already over 45 distinct Crip sets in LA. Despite these rifts, some Crip sets, like the Westside Crips, occasionally aligned with the Hoovers, especially in the face of common enemies. A pivotal moment came when the Westside Crips were initially blamed for the of a Hoover member's younger brother. Instead of an immediate outbreak of violence, the Hoovers and Westside Crips held a meeting to address the It turned out the real culprits were the Figueroa boys. In a brutal turn of events, leaders from the Hoovers and Westside Crips caught a Figueroa leader at a nightclub and severely beat him. Throughout the 70s, the Hoover Groovers, who had by then renamed themselves Hoover Crips, were closely aligned with certain Crip factions. However, the landscape of gang alliances was never stable. The late 70s saw intensified conflicts, such as the feud between the Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips and the A-Tra Gangster Crips, which further complicated alliances. Gangs that aligned with the Rollin' 60s adopted the neighborhood Crips moniker, while those with A-Tra became known as Gangster Crips. The Hoover Crips, amidst these turbulent times, became Hoover Gangster Crips. 1979 also marked the tragic of Raymond Washington, co-founder of the Crips, in a drive-by shooting. Accusations about his flew, with some pointing fingers at the Hoovers, causing a long-standing rift with certain Eastside Cripsettes. Throughout the 1980s, the Hoovers cemented their reputation as one of LA's most formidable gangs, partly through their association with notorious figures like Freeway Ricky Ross, enhancing their influence and reign over the streets. Freeway had aspirations that reached far beyond the streets of LA. As a young man, he dreamed of becoming a professional tennis player. Unfortunately, despite his skills on the court, his academic struggles, particularly with reading and writing, shut the door on any potential college scholarships. This setback steered him towards a drastically different path, into the world of drug TFK. His entry into this underground world started innocuously enough through an acquaintance, an upholstery teacher at a community college who handed him a small amount of to sell. Freeway turned this opportunity into a stepping stone, reinvesting his profits to buy more. Before long, his entrepreneurial spirit catapulted him into the top of LA's drug trade. By the mid-1980s, Freeway had become a major player, allegedly moving over 1,000 pounds of weekly, with connections stretching down to Nicaragua. Reports from that era suggest he was raking in upwards of $3 million a day at the height of his operations. This lucrative venture not only built Freeway's empire, but also significantly boosted the street cred of the Hoover Criminals, the gang he was affiliated with. Within this turbulent world, JAP5 grew up steeped in gang culture. Unlike many who find themselves reluctantly drawn into gang life, Jaf was introduced to it from an early age by his father, a respected member of the Hoover Criminals. Instead of shielding his son from the harsh realities of street life, Jap's father immersed him in it, often bringing him along the block to witness the dynamics of their environment firsthand. This exposure came with its own set of harsh lessons, especially as Jap's father was frequently incarcerated, forcing Jap to shuffle around the city and fend for himself at a young age. His upbringing was a double-edged sword. While it endowed him with street smarts and a certain level of respect within his community, it also entrenched him deeper in gang life, a fact he reflected on during an interview with No Jumper where he described it as more of a curse than a blessing. His aggressive behavior was evident early on. He once ended up in juvenile detention for stabbing a classmate with a screwdriver during a school fight that escalated. The fight had started with some harmless slapboxing, but when Jap got jumped by a group including that classmate, he retaliated the next day in a way that landed him in juvie. Life in juvenile detention did not soften Jap. If anything, it hardened him further. He found himself constantly in fights, often with rivals he hadn't even known he had. The experience, he said, made him far more aggressive and deeply integrated into gang life than ever before. Upon his release, Jap dove even deeper into the lifestyle that had both shaped and scarred his early years. After spending 9 long months behind bars, JAP5 found himself back on the streets for just half a year before trouble found him again. This time, he was slapped with serious charges: robbery and gun possession. This stint landed him in the county jail, but even that experience did not deter him from the lifestyle he knew. Once released, it wasn't long before he was back on the radar of law enforcement, facing a slew of accusations. Though Jap never went into detail about what the police had on him, the charges accumulated and he found himself staring down a 4-year sentence at just 18 years old. Jap's time in juvenile detention and county jail had only deepened his involvement in gang activities, but something changed when he hit prison. There he met an old-timer, a veteran who had spent half a century behind bars. This seasoned inmate took Jap under his wing and urged him to consider the path he was on. Inspired by the conversation, Jap began to reshape his outlook on life. During his time locked up, he took to writing and rapping, developing a skill set that would pave a new path for him. When Jap was released, he was determined not to fall back into his old ways. He secured a legitimate job as a barber and began releasing music, slowly building a name for himself in the rap game. His efforts seemed to be paying off as buzz around his name grew, positioning him as a promising upcoming street rapper from South Central. Around this time, JAP5's rise caught the attention of another figure in the scene, Crip Mac. Known for his volatile personality and his own brushes with the law, Crip Mac became a peculiar kind of celebrity. He first went viral while still in jail, thanks to a diss track he aimed at Cardi B. The track had no real basis. Crip Mac didn't actually have any personal beef with Cardi B, but it exploded in popularity and put him on the map.
Cardi B, you don't be in them streets. I'll bring you down to West and turn you to Cardi C.
After his release, he continued to capture public attention with his outrageous social media antics, including videos with his cat that often went viral. Yet behind the scenes, Crip Mac harbored deep-seated grievances against the Hoovers, stemming from the alleged of one of his closest friends by a Hoover affiliate. In a dramatic gesture, he even had Hoover tattooed on his forehead.
Jack, come hood. You're another snoover, boy. Oh, hell, what can I say? See, man, I got a mental problem. On fight Crip I do. And I really does destruction on neighborhood Crip.
As JAP5's music career began to take off, Crip Mac initiated a feud with him, challenging him to a public boxing match. JAP5, however, dismissed the challenge, stating there was no real animosity and he wouldn't fight unless it was for a paycheck.
Seeing he had the on his head, I'm like, this a weirdo. So I posted him on my story and all my homies like, what the f? They all start commenting like, who the f is that? Like, weird. Like, look what he's saying. He's saying fuck Jap, like I don't even know this shit.
Despite his efforts to stay clear of gang affiliations and focus on his music, Jap's past wouldn't let him go so easily. Shockingly, news broke that he had been arrested for the of Shady Blue, a member of the Rollin' 60s Crips. The allegations claimed he was responsible for plunging him back into the criminal justice system and casting a long shadow over his future in music. Both Shady Blue and Nipsey Hussle hailed from the same gang, the Rollin' 60s, yet their paths diverged dramatically. Nipsey transformed his life, achieving success in music and making significant strides in activism. Shady, on the other hand, found himself repeatedly pulled back into the street life despite attempts at going straight. Their stories are reminders that despite differences in success or the paths taken, the harsh realities of their origins had a lasting impact. Neither fame nor fortune nor firepower could ultimately alter their fates. Let us know what you think of all this in the comments below, and we'll catch you in the next video.